The Woods Are Always Watching by Stephanie Perkins. Nina cut the engine, and the speakers went silent, mid-lyric. The trail was straight ahead, but her gaze could only follow it to its first bend. The overhanging forest, a drab and washed-out green that presaged the end of summer, obscured the rest of the path. "How many days do you think we'll last?" she asked. "How many hours?" Josie said. "If I die out there, I'd be honored if you ate my body." "I would never let a bear get to your body first." "Oh my God." Incredulity tainted Nina's laughter. "Would you please stop it with the bears?" "Only if you promise not to mention their existence for the next 72 hours. "I didn't. You brought them up. Again." Josie shuddered, darkening. "I'm serious. I don't know if I can do this." "Just think of them as big Winnie the Poohs." "Shut your hole." "Paddingtons, Baloos, Fozzies." It was a joke. It was always a joke, but Josie jerked open the passenger side door and got out. It slammed shut behind her. Nina grabbed her phone off the charger and followed her best friend into the parking lot. "Bernstein's," she said, digging in. Nina always dug in. Her hiking boots crunched against the wet gravel. The rain had just stopped. In these mountains it rained most afternoons during the summer, violent downpours in the early seasons, irksome drizzles in the late, but cleared quickly. It was the third week of August. The little South Chickadee River burbled and sang nearby. Insects hummed and clicked their wings. The lazy breeze smelled of sun-warmed pine. Josie pivoted with sudden interest. "Ooh, did you ever have a thing for Brother Bear? I mean, before you realized they were uber-Christian hillbillies?" "What are you talking about?" Nina asked, confused. "Brother Bear, with the red shirt and blue pants." "I know who Brother Bear is. The Bernstein Bears were Christian?" "There were numerous books with the word God in the title." "Huh," Nina said. "I guess my parents didn't check those out from the library." She popped the Subaru's hatch. Everyone in Asheville drove a Subaru, the preferred mode of transportation for modern hippies and outdoorsmen, among which the girls were neither. Nina's parents had purchased the Impreza because it had a high safety rating. Their backpacks crowded its hatch like monstrous bloated caterpillars. Very hungry caterpillars. Nina realized her thoughts might be stuck on picture books. She moaned, "I don't wanna." Josie copied Nina's moan. "I don't wanna either." The packs didn't budge, refusing to help. These were not their school backpacks, retired from service and recently replaced by more stylish backpacks for college. Josie's brother and his girlfriend had loaned them a pair of backpacking packs, a boggling assemblage of padded straps, hip belts, bungee cords, mesh pockets, and bulging compartments. Nina prickled with renewed trepidation. Not only were these packs borrowed, but so was the equipment inside them. Even her boots, an outmoded pair, heavy and ugly, were borrowed from Josie's mom, who wore the same size. Unfortunately, they had no one to blame but themselves. The trip had been concocted only 2 days ago during their morning shift at Kmart, a pre-Amazon relic where customers often exclaimed in astonishment, "I thought you guys went under years ago." Alas, the chain clung on for its meager life. Their particular location had a whopping 1.5-star rating on Yelp. Its shelves were largely empty and in permanent disarray. Clothing hung askew on broken racks. Dented cans lingered past expiration dates. Sports equipment was shellacked in off-putting colors, and the book selection was a smattering of religious overstock and failed theme mystery series. The Thanksgiving Murders, The Body in the Badminton Court, Till Death Do Us Sudoku. The store looked like a former roommate had never returned to pick up the last of his boxes. That Saturday shift had been Nina's last. In 1 week she would be moving to California for college. Josie was staying in North Carolina. "We should do something," Nina had said. "We are doing something," Josie had replied flatly. "We're restocking the shampoo aisle." "Something significant. Something just the two of us." "It's always just the two of us." Though her gaze had remained detached, Josie's eyelids twitched at her own slip. It wouldn't always be just the two of them. The impending separation pressed against them like a loaded shotgun. Josie was acting glum and bitter as she had been all summer. Nina longed for the old Josie who was lively and game. She needed the old Josie. She tried again. Something big. I mean, maybe we could drive to Dollywood. Roller coasters give you migraines. We could go camping, like Galen and Kyle. We hate Galen and Kyle, Josie had said. They hated everybody. It was one of the things that had sealed their friendship. But their teenage redneck coworkers were particularly loathsome. They spat watery brown dip onto the break room floor, ignored calls to the registers for backup, and viewed feminism as a threat to their masculinity. And we don't know shit about camping. Nature is for other people. Their classmates had all taken advantage of the mountain lifestyle. They had always been off tubing and kayaking down the French Broad River, hiking and camping along the Blue Ridge Parkway. A lot of beer, weed, and sex had been involved. It was a local rite of passage. Nina and Josie had never been interested in any of that, excepting the sex, but regrettably neither of them ever had a boyfriend. Yeah, Nina had said, but if they can do it, so can we. Didn't you used to go camping with your family? When I was a kid, and my dad and Win did all the work. Josie's father had died when she was in the 8th grade. Win was Winston, Josie's older brother. It was unnecessary to point out that Nina had never been camping. Everyone in her family was strictly an indoor type. Despite this, Nina unexpectedly latched onto the idea. Okay, but Win goes all the time. We could borrow his gear. Her reasoning crumbled into pleading. I mean, haven't you ever wondered if maybe we missed out on a vital high school experience? Josie had snorted with disdain, but she'd stopped restocking. Soon I won't even have the option to do things like this anymore, Nina had said. Not in the city. This is my last chance. Nina wasn't sure why Josie had eventually come around, maybe because Nina had continued to monologue, hyping the excursion with notions of enlightenment. Being in the woods would be freeing, a technology detox, a chance to commune with Mother Earth, Mother Nature, whatever her name was. But by the time Nina had clocked out for the last time from the not-so-superstore, Josie had switched enough shifts so they could do it. Of course, they still needed permission. They had wanted to leave the next morning, but it took longer than that just to convince Nina's parents. I won't see Josie again until Thanksgiving. You won't see us until Thanksgiving either. I'm an adult. You are 18. I've never gotten into trouble. You have never been given the chance because we keep you safe. Nina's father had relented first. Maybe it was because he'd spent more time with Josie, driving the girls around before Nina had gotten her license, fixing them hot dogs in Jahol Muri after school, watching every season of endless sitcoms with them. As the primary witness to their friendship, perhaps he held deeper compassion for their situation. Our daughter is right, Baba had said, warily rubbing his brow. Nina had been surprised to be right. She is responsible and trustworthy. She has earned this. The trip would last 3 days, and the girls had decided to go backpacking, which, best they could tell, meant hiking with camping. Camping only sounded boring. Josie's brother had helped them select a trail, and ever the diligent students, they crammed their research, reading articles, watching videos, scouring message boards. They'd organized an itinerary and printed out copies for their families. They'd downloaded trail map apps onto their phones and marked the waypoints. But Nina's parents still wouldn't give their final blessing until the girls proved they could use the equipment. Earlier that morning, all 3 parents had stood in Josie's overgrown backyard, scrutinizing them as they pitched the tent, lit the stove, and filtered water under Win's tutelage. The girls were unskilled and clumsy, and everyone had a good chuckle at their expense, but they'd passed the test. They excelled at passing tests. And now they were here, and so were their enormous backpacks. Do you remember how we're supposed to put them on? Nina tried to recall Win's backpack demonstration, but it blurred with all his other demonstrations and instructions. Josie frowned. Something to do with the knees, or a knee. There's definitely some kind of a knee-to-shoulder transfer, I think. They glanced at each other. The absurdity of not even knowing the very first step broke them into nervous, hysterical giggles. Nina reached for her pack. Here goes nothing. Literally nothing went. The pack was leaden. Well, Nina said, shit. They cracked up harder. Using all four hands, together the girls scooted and grunted the behemoth forward until Nina's pack was half on the car, half off. They were in tears from laughing. "Was it this heavy when we put it in here?" Josie asked. "I think it burst a baby hippopotamus." Nina unzipped the back's hip belt pocket and squeezed her phone inside. Service didn't exist out here, but they'd packed a charging device so they could still use their cameras and GPS. They had been surprised to learn that GPS would still work. Wynn had explained that it connected to satellites, not cell towers. The girls' last text had been sent from a remote highway on the outskirts of Canton, just past a guzzling old paper mill. The cell signals had vanished soon after. Their families did not expect to hear from them again until they returned. Josie pointed at the pack straps, which were dangling above the ground. "Can you get underneath, maybe? Could you try to slip those on?" Nina glanced around to ensure that no one else was watching, but it was a Monday, a weekday, and this wasn't a popular trail. Another Subaru was parked at the east end of the lot, because of course it was, and two pickups were parked at the west. The rest of the lot was empty. The weekend hikers and campers had already gone home. Crouching below her target, Nina turtled it onto her body. Her arms threaded through the straps, her right foot took a labored step, the pack dislodged, and then slowly, steadily pushed her straight into the ground. Josie lost her mind. She buckled over again, clutching her abdomen. The crush was so alarming that Nina laughed too, out of shock. Her clothes sponged up the sodden earth. "I don't recommend this method." "I've never actually seen slow motion in real life." "Hey, help a gal out." It took a full minute for Josie to roll Nina over and then for Nina to rock back and forth to gain some momentum, but finally Nina heaved upward. Josie grabbed Nina's flailing hands, their matching rings caught in the sunlight, glittering like miniature galaxies. The rings were all stone, no metal, carved ultramarine with clouds of white calcite and flecks of gold pyrite. Last winter, the girls had purchased them at a mineral shop downtown because the sign had claimed that lapis lazuli was a symbol of friendship. The rings had adorned their right index finger ever since. Josie lifted Nina to her feet and didn't let go until Nina was steady. "You look fantastic," she said, "like you're ready to summit Everest." Dampness muddied Nina's to shield her legs from ticks, which were abundant here and carried Lyme disease. "Cotton kills," Wynn had warned, a favorite refrain from the outdoor community, but he wasn't talking about protection from blood-sucking arachnids. Cotton was dangerous because it absorbed moisture and lacked insulation. Unfortunately, their choices were either jeans or leggings. The girls didn't own any other type of pants. The leggings weren't warm enough because he'd also said it got cold out here at night, even in August, even though they were only 55 minutes from home. Nina snapped her hip belt together. "Your turn." Josie wished it weren't. She had only agreed to this trip because Nina had begged, and because their days together were at an end. The trip almost hadn't even happened. Josie had allowed Nina to believe that Nina's parents were the holdup, but the truth was that Josie's mother had been equally resistant. She'd only relented after Wynn had intervened. Josie had overheard his muffled appeal from the other side of her bedroom wall. "Her best friend is moving away. Just let her have this." It stung to hear her circumstances described so plainly. Everything about this summer stung because Nina was leaving and Josie was staying. Nina was going to attend the University of Southern California, and Josie was going to attend the University of North Carolina, Asheville. Nina was going to live in a dormitory, and Josie was going to keep living at home with her mother. Nina was going to have new friends and new experiences, and Josie was going to be surrounded by all the same people and places. It wasn't that Josie didn't love their hometown. Asheville was beautiful and open-minded and had multiple concert venues, independent cinemas, and organic farmers markets. It had arts and crafts neighborhoods and an art deco downtown. It had character and history and integrity. But it was also small, the kind of city that adults chose to live in after they'd explored the rest of the world. Nina was about to see the world without her. Josie was about to become a human Kmart, abandoned and forgotten, but still here. Sorry, I can't help you anymore, Nina said, shuffling toward her. Josie startled. What? With your pack. You should have moved yours too before I put on mine. Sometimes Josie believed sincerely that Nina could read her mind. She was glad this wasn't one of the occasions. Putting on a show of false enthusiasm and roaring with exaggerated strength, Josie hefted her pack to the edge of the hatch. Nina blinked at her, mystified. How did you do that? You've got the food, I've got the tent. The food weighs more. Fuck that, you're taking the food tomorrow. Josie grinned for real. After we've already eaten some? No problem. You devious, devious wench. That was the deal. You got the lady backpack, so you got the extra pounds. Josie shoved her pack into an upright position. It took several attempts before it stayed. I got the lady backpack because I'm shorter than you, and I still think the lady backpack should necessitate fewer pounds. The lady backpack distributes the weight more evenly across the lady's body. Nina waddled in a circle. Her hands were posed like she was modeling. Now tell me, is it this luscious shade of purple that makes it a lady backpack? Luscious lavender. Ladies in Lavender. Wasn't that a movie with Judi Dench and Maggie Smith? They nurse a sexy young violinist back to health. When we're old, Nina said, I want us to be surrounded by sexy young violinists. I'd settle for us just being dames, Josie said. Her pack was navy blue and stained from years of rugged use. Wynne had started solo backpacking after their father's death. Their father had loved the outdoors, and in his grief, her brother had found refuge there. He'd been 17 then, only a few months younger than Josie was now. It was a surprising realization. Now Wynne was 22, but it seemed like he'd been an adult forever. Megan, owner of the Lavender Pack, had only taken up backpacking when she and Wynne started dating. Josie hoped she would never stoop to something like that. But if a guy ever showed any interest in her, maybe she'd take up a dumb hobby to impress him too. Obviously we'll be dames, Nina said. Josie loved talking with Nina like this, like their future was certain, like they would always be friends. She backed up neatly into her upright pack, slipped the straps over her shoulders, snapped it all together, and stood. Aw, Nina said, that's not fair. Compared to Nina, Josie was tall, practically brawny. She had the type of body that could have real natural strength if she put forth even a modicum of effort. But she never had, so it didn't. The burden on her back, the sheer resistance to her effort was staggering. She balked. Oh my God, people do this for fun? That's what I said. Panic flooded through Josie. It hadn't occurred to her that they might not be physically capable of this trip. How are we supposed to carry these for 3 days? Nina shook her head. I have no idea. How? I don't know, Nina said, but the joking had stopped. Whenever one of them freaked out, and admittedly it was usually Josie, the other went calm. We just will. Josie was sure that if Nina could have shrugged right now, she would have shrugged. Not condescendingly, the gesture would have been comforting. Josie's panic dulled back into an uneasy, unidentified dread. Right. People do this all the time. Yeah, and we're people, Nina said. Surely we can do this too. Did you see us in gym class? Nina slammed the hatch closed. Birds squawked and took to the humid air. I kept my eyes closed in gym class? That explains a lot. After double-checking that they had everything, Josie stuffed the car keys into the top of Nina's pack. Oh, jeez, Nina said. Don't look. Moving to investigate, Josie whacked Nina with her pack. What? Nina oofed. Sorry, what? I don't see any... Oh, I told you not to look. A plywood notice board stood beside the trail in large type on a sheet of copy paper protected by plastic. A faded sign read, Bare canisters required. It's okay, Nina said. We've got one. A second notice with smaller type was tacked beside it, and Josie toddled over to read it. The unwelcome words raked across her skin so viciously that she felt marked. It says if we don't have a canister, we can get fined, or even get jail time. Again, we have a canister. It's from the Forest Service emergency requirement to use bear-resistant canisters in, and great, it lists Fraser Mountain, Deep Fork, Misty Rock Wilderness, and Burnt Balsam Knob. That's our whole itinerary. Nina sidled up to her and pointed. What are those? Several different sets of handwriting were scrawled directly onto the splintered plywood. 5:20. Bear walked through Misty Rock campsite at 9:40 p.m. 6:2. Meadow Ridge Cove, 2 times bears. 6:9. Saw 1 bear cross Misty Rock Creek. 6:17. Meadow Ridge Cove, 1 bear, 6 p.m. 6:29. 1 bear in Misty Rock Wilderness. 7:7. Burnt balsam, 2 bears. Josie's head wrenched away, trying to avoid absorbing the information. Primal anxiety swelled within. In her mind, a lumbering beast snuffled outside their flimsy tent. The hackles of its shadow rose. A ferocious claw slashed through the defenseless nylon, attacking with frenzied black eyes and snarled white teeth. No activity since July, Nina said. See, they're already hibernating. We're so getting revenanted. That was a movie based on a true story. Okay, but it happened like 200 years ago in Canada or Alaska or whatever, and he was attacked by a grizzly bear. No one gets hurt by black bears. Actually, in this decade alone, 10 people had been killed by black bears in North America. Josie had looked it up. None of them had been on this part of the continent, but still. In recent years, black bear traffic had increased significantly throughout Asheville. Heavy rains due to climate change meant it took longer for nuts and berries to ripen, which meant that bears were emerging from the woods in search of other food. Trash cans were gnashed with claw marks. People were hospitalized after accidentally interrupting feasts. And then there was the man who had weaponized his own mountain bike to fend off an aggressive mama bear. That had happened here, inside this very forest, where there were no cars or houses or buildings to provide protective shelter. Oh, shit. Nina punched Josie's arm. Smokey Bear. How did we forget him? He's a park ranger. He saves lives. Think of them as helpful Smokies. But Josie didn't want to think about bears at all. She desperately wanted to stop thinking about them. She couldn't admit, not even to Nina, that the Wizard of Oz had frightened her as a child, not because of the Wicked Witch or her squadron of flying monkeys, but when Dorothy and her friends had chanted, "Lions and tigers and bears, oh my," as they skipped into the dark wood. They had introduced Josie to the concept of being eaten alive. Flesh ripping, teeth gnashing, watching your own chunky, meaty chunks be swallowed down the throat of another carnivorous mammal. Lions. Black panthers had been part of state folklore, but they were as likely to be discovered as Bigfoot. Bobcats did live here, though. They only attacked humans if they were sick or rabid. However, once upon a time, mountain lions had also lived here, and some believe they still did. Sightings of long-tailed cats with tawny-colored fur remain rampant among hunters, though experts claimed if they did exist, they were simply exotic pets that had been released. This didn't make Josie feel any better. A pet mountain lion was still a mountain lion. And tigers? At least there weren't any tigers, although Josie had once read that there were more tigers in captivity in the United States than in the wilds of Asia, a fact that distressed her on multiple counts. And bears. But bears. There were definitely bears out here. Oh my. Josie shifted on her mental checklist. Keep the campsite clean. Make noise. Place everything that smells out of reach. Watch out for scat and tracks and rubbing tree bark. Urinate far away from the tent. Her palms were clammy. She didn't want to do this. Why were they doing this? Where's your phone? Nina asked. We need to commemorate the moment. She nodded toward the other sign, the one beside the notice board. It was large and proud and distinctly American, with its National Forest typeface and specific shade of brown. Wade Hart Trailhead, it said. Pisgah National Forest. Josie tugged the phone out from her jeans. Her hip belt didn't have a handy pocket like Nina's, and they took dozens of selfies in front of the sign, hoping that at least one would make them look good. Giant smiles, sunglasses on, sunglasses off. The screen blurred because Josie's glasses were prescription. To conserve the battery, she switched the phone to airplane mode, and then Nina stowed it in the top of Josie's pack so that it wouldn't dig into her thigh. It barely fit. Josie wondered if the weight would lighten as they consumed the food, or if it would grow heavier with their exhaustion. Nothing to do but to do it, Nina said, quoting their least favorite teacher because they liked reminding each other how awful he was. Keep calm and carry on, Josie said as they set off down the trail. Too blessed to be stressed. Oh God, why do they all have to rhyme? Their banter continued as they rounded the first bend. Josie glanced back. The burbling river softened and then silenced. Nina's car disappeared. The woods swallowed them whole.